Hi, my name is Lauren, and before I tell you my story, I want to ask you something that might hit close to home. Have you ever felt like you were invisible in your own family? Like no matter how hard you try, how much you give, or how quietly you carry the weight of everything, you're still not seen? Especially when there's always that one sibling who gets everything. The praise, the gifts, the love, the attention, while you're left wondering what you did wrong. If that's ever happened to you, I want to hear from you. Go ahead and tell me in the comments where you're from and share your story. Don't hold back. I read every single comment because I know I'm not alone. You're not alone either. I'm from Kentucky and I've spent most of my life being compared to my younger sister. She's the golden one, the loud, charming, spotlight-stealing one. Me. I was always the helper. The responsible one. The one they never bragged about. This story I'm about to share, it still feels heavy on my chest. It's not just about a car. It's about respect. It's about being overlooked and how life has a strange way of flipping the script when you least expect it. So when my parents gifted my sister a brand new Bentley and told me I should earn my own, it broke me a little. But the real story? That began when they got a call from the police. I still remember the way my mom's face lit up every time my sister Ashley walked into a room. You could see it in her eyes. Pure admiration. She was the golden daughter. The one with the wide smile, perfect grades, charm that could melt stone. Me. I was quiet. Polite. The one who made straight B's, cleaned up after dinner without being asked, and sat in the background while they clapped for her every move. Growing up, it was always Ashley's world. I was just living in it. On Ashley's 10th birthday, my parents threw her a huge party. Balloons filled the whole backyard. She had a cake shaped like a castle and even a magician. I was only 12, but I still remember standing in the corner, watching everyone take turns handing her gifts while my mom kept saying, "She's just so special, isn't she?" 2 weeks later my birthday came. We had dinner at home, meatloaf and mashed potatoes. No cake. No party. Mom said money was tight that month and you're older now, Lauren. You understand. I didn't. Not then. It wasn't just birthdays. It was everything. In high school, Ashley joined cheerleading. My parents went to every game. I was on the debate team, placed second in state, and no one came to watch. Not once. When I brought it up, Dad laughed and said, "You know we support you. But Ashley's team really needs the crowd." By college, the pattern was fully set. I got a partial scholarship, worked part-time, and paid for the rest myself. Ashley? They paid her full tuition. Even got her a new car for safety. A silver SUV with heated seats. I drove a used Honda with the door handle tied shut with twine. I thought maybe things would change as we got older. That maybe with time they'd start to see me. But even as adults, I was the helper, the fixer, the quiet one who never needed anything. They counted on me to run errands, check in on them, keep family holidays in order. Ashley would fly in late, arms full of expensive gifts, and they'd treat her like a queen. I once showed up with a homemade pecan pie and my mom smiled and said, "You always keep things simple, Lauren." Simple. Like I was the paper plate next to Ashley's fine china. The emotional neglect wasn't loud. It was soft and constant, the kind that builds over years like dust on shelves no one bothers to wipe clean. They didn't scream at me or call me names. They just forgot me. Over and over. What really hurt was that I tried. I really did. I called them regularly. I remembered birthdays. I sent cards on anniversaries. I checked in after doctor appointments. I even helped pay one of their medical bills last year when Ashley forgot to send the money. They thanked me, sure. But the same day, Mom posted a picture of Ashley on Facebook with the caption, "Our sunshine girl, always taking care of us." Sunshine girl. Always. One Thanksgiving we all sat around the table. Ashley showed up in a red dress, flashing a new necklace. Dad asked her to carve the turkey and I laughed and said, "Since when does she do that?" He turned to me and said, "Lauren, don't ruin the mood." Like I'd offended a guest in their home. Even my husband noticed the way they treated us differently. "They never really see you, do they?" he asked once while we drove home from their place. I stared out the window and said, "I don't think they ever have." And yet I kept showing up. Hoping. Maybe next time they'll ask about my job. Maybe next time they'll want to know how I'm really doing. Maybe they'll remember something, anything, about me that doesn't have to do with being the responsible one. But nothing prepared me for the moment they told me they'd bought Ashley a Bentley. Not a used one. Not a modest model. A brand new luxury high-end Bentley. She needs something reliable for work, Mom said. And she's been under so much stress lately. They said it with a straight face. I didn't even know what to say. I stood there blinking like I hadn't heard them right. I asked them gently if they'd considered helping me with a down payment for my new apartment. Something small. Practical. My mom looked at me and said, "Lauren, you're so independent. You've always handled things on your own. Ashley's not like that. She needs support." I nodded, smiled even. But something cracked inside me that day. Not because of the car. But because they never saw me, not as someone worth investing in, not even as someone they needed to love a little harder. And I didn't know it then, but the Bentley would become more than just another example of favoritism. It would become a symbol. Of lies. Of consequences. Of a truth they could never have imagined waiting for them inside that polished trunk. It happened on a humid June afternoon, Ashley's graduation party. She had just earned her master's degree in marketing, and of course my parents had gone all out. The backyard was transformed into something out of a magazine. White tents, fairy lights strung through the trees, a jazz trio playing in the corner, and catered food with servers walking around offering mini crab cakes and champagne. I arrived in a simple blue dress, the same one I'd worn to 2 previous family events. As I stepped into the backyard, my mom looked over from the drink table and waved at me, smiling politely like I was a distant cousin instead of her own daughter. I walked over to the gift table, placing the book I'd spent weeks choosing for Ashley. It was a rare, signed copy from her favorite author, something thoughtful. Something that meant something. But before I could turn around, Dad clapped his hands and shouted, "Everyone! Everyone gather around, please. We've got a surprise." The guests crowded together near the driveway. Ashley stood in the center, already glowing from all the compliments and attention. Then my dad reached into his pocket, pulled out a key fob and handed it to her. Ashley's jaw dropped. "No way." "Oh yes," Dad laughed. "Come on, let's show everyone." We all followed them to the front of the house. Parked in the driveway was a brand new, gleaming white Bentley. Tiny. Immaculate. The kind of car that turned heads even in rich neighborhoods. Ashley screamed, jumping up and down. Mom clapped, tearing up. "You've worked so hard, honey. You deserve the best." I stood there frozen. People were gasping, cheering, taking pictures like we were at some Hollywood event. Ashley threw herself into Dad's arms and then Mom's, sobbing happy tears. My chest tightened. Later, when the crowd thinned out, I walked over to Mom and gently asked, "So, a Bentley?" She smiled, sipping her wine. "Isn't it gorgeous?" "Yeah," I said. I'm surprised. I didn't even know you guys were planning anything that big." "Well," she said, setting her glass down, "Ashley's had a rough year. And she's starting her career. She needs something reliable. Something that shows her value." I tried to keep my voice calm. "You didn't think I could have used some help too?" "I just took on a second job to make rent." She tilted her head like I'd just confessed something strange. "Lauren, you've always been the strong one. You manage. Ashley's different. She's sensitive." Sensitive. That word rang in my ears. Like being fragile made someone more deserving of luxury. I looked over at the car again. A crowd still hovered around it. Dad was showing people the interior like a proud dealer at an auto show. I wanted to scream. Not because I wanted a Bentley. Not even because I wanted anything that grand. But because of the way they looked at her. Like she was some rare gem they were lucky to have. And the way they looked at me like I was fine. Fine to be forgotten. Fine to be brushed aside. Ashley drove that car like it was made for royalty. The next day she posted pictures on social media. "Hard work pays off, gemstone." With no mention of the fact that our parents had paid for the whole thing. A few days later I tried to bring it up again with Dad. "I just don't understand why you'd give her a car like that," I said carefully. "It's so much." He looked at me with a strange mix of annoyance and pity. "Lauren, let it go. You've always been different. You're used to less. She's our baby. Used to less." Those words hit harder than I expected. Used to less. Like I had been groomed my entire life to accept scraps. Like they'd conditioned me to think I should be grateful for the leftovers of love, time, and attention. That night, I sat alone in my apartment staring at my phone. I'd taken a picture of the Bentley too. Not to admire it, but to remind myself of how it felt to be standing there while everyone else clapped. How it felt to be invisible in plain sight. I didn't sleep much. I kept hearing my mother's voice. You manage. Ashley's not like you. He was right. Ashley wasn't like me. She got handed things without ever having to fight. I had clawed my way through life, always smiling, always being the strong one. But something was changing inside me. The betrayal wasn't just the car. It was the culmination of years. Years of being ignored, overlooked, and expected to play the supportive role in a play I never got to star in. But fate has a way of turning. And while I didn't know exactly how yet, I had this feeling in my gut that the universe wasn't quite done with the Bentley. Because one day when my parents picked up the phone and heard that call from the police, the one about what was found in Ashley's shiny new trunk, their faces wouldn't be glowing anymore. While Ashley was out driving her shiny new Bentley to brunches and beach weekends, I was grinding through double shifts and learning to live with the kind of exhaustion that sits in your bones. Every morning, I woke up before the sun and poured myself a cheap cup of coffee in my small, dim kitchen. My apartment was barely 500 square feet with second-hand furniture and creaky floors, but I made it home. I'd get dressed in the same 3 outfits I rotated for my receptionist job at the dentist's office, pack a sandwich and leave before the building even came to life. From 8 to 4 I'd answer phones with a smile, confirm appointments, deal with late patients, and somehow stay calm even when someone screamed at me because they had to reschedule a root canal. I never let it show, but inside I was always tired. Not just tired from work, but tired of pretending I was okay with how my life turned out. Tired of being the one they never bragged about. After my shift ended, I'd walk down the block to a local diner where I waitressed the dinner rush. It wasn't glamorous, but I didn't complain. I needed the money. I always needed the money. While my sister's gas tank was filled by my parents, I had to make sure mine didn't hit E before payday. But I wasn't just working, I was quietly building something. Every night after I came home from the diner, I'd shower, eat something light, and sit down at my laptop. I enrolled in an online coding boot camp. It was nothing fancy, just a basic beginner course, but it was the first thing I'd done for myself in a long time. I was learning HTML, CSS, and slowly getting into JavaScript. At first it felt overwhelming, but soon I began to enjoy it. I liked how the code made sense. It was logical, structured, and nothing like the mess of favoritism and silence I had grown up with. When I wasn't coding, I was watching real estate videos on YouTube. I started reading about flipping small rental properties and learning how to understand market trends. It became my secret obsession. I didn't have money to invest, not yet, but knowledge was free and I was hungry for it. I'd jot notes in a spiral notebook, highlight books I borrowed from the library, and save motivational quotes as phone wallpapers. I was planting seeds in silence while the world clapped for Ashley's glossy, instant success. Not once did my parents ask what I was up to. Not once did they say, "Lauren, how are you really doing?" They assumed I was fine. After all, I'd always been fine, right? There was one weekend I visited them. Ashley had invited everyone over for drinks in her new place. Yes, the Bentley came with an apartment. A starter condo downtown paid for by our parents because she needed to be close to work. As I stepped into her marble-floored living room, I caught my reflection in the mirror near the entrance. I looked invisible. That same word again. It followed me like a shadow. Everyone was drinking wine, laughing at her Instagram stories, talking about her new dating life. I quietly sat on the edge of the couch, sipping a soda, and when I spoke about a small website I had helped design during my bootcamp project, my mom blinked, smiled politely, and changed the subject. "Oh, Ashley met a guy who owns a tech company," she said with a smirk. "Isn't that perfect?" I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. It didn't matter what I did. In their eyes, I was just Lauren. Background noise. But deep down, I knew I was becoming someone they wouldn't recognize. Someone who didn't need their praise to rise. Someone who had grit, patience, and the kind of discipline you only develop when no one believes in you. By the end of that year, I had a small portfolio of websites I'd built. Nothing major, just mom-and-pop shops, a bakery, a local yoga studio. But it paid. And for the first time, I didn't need both jobs. I quit the diner quietly. I didn't announce it, didn't post about it, just handed in my apron, thanked the manager, and walked out. I still remember that night. I came home, kicked off my shoes, and for the first time in a long while, cried. But they weren't sad tears. They were relief. It felt like I was finally starting to reclaim something. My worth. My dignity. My future. I started saving aggressively, cutting costs, and building up a small emergency fund. I also joined a local group for women in tech, and for the first time in my adult life I felt seen. These women didn't care about Bentleys or babying anyone. They respected hustle. Still, my parents didn't notice. When I called one night to share that a boutique hotel wanted to hire me for a full site revamp, Mom just said, "That's nice, honey. Ashley's going to Aruba next month." Can you believe it? I stopped trying after that. I stopped hoping they'd clap. Instead, I clapped for myself. Because while Ashley was coasting, I was climbing. And I had no idea that all this quiet work, this slow, steady grind, was about to pay off in the most unexpected way. Because that same Bentley, the one that made my stomach turn every time I saw it, it was about to become the center of a very different kind of attention. The kind that starts with flashing lights and a knock on my parents' door. It was almost laughable how things turned around. After months of silent hustle and sacrificing sleep, I finally landed a contract that changed everything. A mid-sized e-commerce startup needed a complete rebrand: website, digital storefront, back-end systems. I handled it all, and not only did they pay well, but they connected me with other business owners who needed similar work. Within a year, I wasn't just freelancing, I was running my own digital agency. I registered the company under a brand name that didn't scream Lauren anywhere. It was sleek, professional, and completely anonymous. I hired a small team, developers, designers, copywriters, and rented a shared office downtown. We grew fast because we were good. And I made sure to stay behind the curtain. My name was never on the public site, and I operated through an executive assistant. I wasn't chasing recognition. I was building power quietly. One day, I got an email from our hiring coordinator forwarding a resume with a little note. "This one's familiar. Check it out." I clicked it open and nearly choked on my tea. Ashley. My sister had applied for a digital marketing position in my company. Same Ashley who once laughed when I said I was learning coding. Same Ashley who posted Instagram reels in her Bentley with captions like, "Work hard, shop harder." Even though the only work she knew was choosing outfits for brunch. She had no idea. Apparently, her influencer deals had started to dry up, and Mom and Dad told her it was time to get a real job. Of course, they still made it sound glamorous. When they called me later that week, they couldn't stop bragging. "Lauren," my mom said on speakerphone, "you'll never believe it. Ashley got a job at one of the top digital firms in the city. The benefits, the office, it's like something out of a movie." I bit my lip to keep from laughing. I nodded and said, "That's great, Mom. Really proud of her." My father chimed in, "See, both our girls doing so well. But Ashley really landed on her feet, didn't she?" "Oh, absolutely," I said, holding back the smirk growing on my face. Ashley walked into the office the next Monday like she owned the place. She didn't recognize me. Why would she? I wasn't sitting at reception or in a cubicle. I was in the glass office behind the tinted door labeled Executive Suite, which I only stepped into for board meetings or high-level strategy reviews. Most of the time I worked from home or in disguise as just another face on Zoom. She started off strong, charming, fashionable, and full of buzzwords she barely understood. But it didn't take long before the cracks started to show. She was late to meetings, vague with analytics, and kept trying to pitch vibe-based campaigns with no data to back them. So I didn't fire her. Not yet. I wanted her to stay. I watched from the sidelines as she floated through projects, clueless that the woman reviewing her performance reports, approving her paychecks and holding the company credit card, was me. At lunch, she'd bragged to coworkers about how her parents had pushed her to work, but she was already planning to launch her own brand soon. "I'm just using this job to gain experience," she'd say loudly, swirling her overpriced iced coffee. "I'm gonna be huge. This is just a stepping stone." Some of my team liked her energy. Others rolled their eyes. But no one suspected a thing because I never told them who she was. The sweetest part? Every time she deposited her paycheck, it came from the account I personally funded. Her lunches, her Uber rides, even her employee wellness stipend. I paid for all of it. And my parents? They kept boasting at every family dinner about how proud they were of her. "She's working at that high-end digital place. We heard they have some big-time woman behind it," Mom said once with a knowing nod. "A real girl boss." I smiled and refilled her glass. Ashley didn't know it, but she was walking straight into the setup I'd been planning for months. I let her settle in, let her get comfortable. I even approved her promotion to junior marketing lead just to make sure she'd stay a while longer. Because when the truth came out, When she and my parents realized whose empire they had been feeding off, it wouldn't just be embarrassing. It would be unforgettable. And just like the Bentley they gifted her, there was something in her work account too that would soon blow up in a way no one saw coming. It was a regular Thursday afternoon when the storm finally hit. I was sipping a quiet cup of coffee in my home office, catching up on some invoices when my phone buzzed. It was a message from an old high school friend who still lived in our hometown. "Is that your sister on the news?" I blinked, heart skipping a beat. I clicked the link she sent, and there it was. Local news footage of a shiny black Bentley parked on the side of the road, hazard lights blinking as officers walked around it. Ashley. The headline read, "Local woman detained after suspicious items found in luxury vehicle." I froze. My mind raced. What had they found? Moments later the phone rang again. This time it was my mom. Her voice was tight, panicked. "Lauren, your sister, oh God, they took her in." "What? Took her where?" "The police. They pulled her over. They said there were drugs in her car. In the trunk. And something about stolen IDs. They think she was involved in some kind of scheme." I stayed quiet, letting the weight of her words linger in the air. My father got on the line too. "This is a nightmare. It's all over the local news. The Bentley, her Bentley, it's being towed. What will the neighbors say? What will the church think?" That last part nearly made me laugh out loud. Apparently, Ashley had been dating some guy no one knew much about. A flashy, fast-talking businessman she met at some influencer party. Turns out he wasn't running any business, at least not the legal kind. He was using Ashley's Bentley to move things around. Packages. IDs. Possibly drugs. The trunk had false panels. Hidden compartments. And she had no clue. She told the police she didn't know anything about it, that the Bentley was just a gift from her parents and she barely used it for anything except driving to brunch or photo shoots. But the police didn't seem convinced. They found parking tickets in another city, matching descriptions of her car at suspected drop-off points. The worst part, her boyfriend was already under investigation. And now Ashley was caught right in the middle. By the next morning, every neighbor within 10 miles had heard. People were calling my parents non-stop, not out of concern but out of curiosity. Gossip. And my parents? They were spiraling. My father kept pacing outside their house like a prisoner. My mother stopped going to her yoga class, claiming she had migraines. But really she was too embarrassed to show her face. Her golden daughter, the pride of the family, was suddenly associated with crime. Meanwhile, Ashley was released on bail, but her social media accounts went dark. Brands pulled her partnerships. Sponsorships disappeared overnight. Her name wasn't trending anymore, at least not for the reasons she liked. And that Bentley? Evidence. I'll never forget the moment they called me again. This time not to brag but to cry. "Lauren," Mom sobbed, "this is tearing us apart. What did we do wrong? She always seemed so perfect. So confident." "She needed that car," Dad muttered bitterly. "We thought it would help her image. Help her grow." They finally sounded defeated. Finally human. And I didn't say much. Just listened. Just nodded. Because they didn't know that every step of Ashley's downfall began with a choice they made. They told me to earn my own. That I was used to less. That Ashley needed more. Oh, now she had more. More attention. More scandal. More mess than she could ever clean up. And even though I hadn't planted those things in her Bentley, I couldn't deny how poetic it felt. The car they gave her as a reward for doing nothing had become the very thing that shattered the illusion they built around her. And for the first time in my life I didn't feel like the forgotten daughter anymore. I felt seen. And they were finally starting to see too. After the police call and all the chaos, something unexpected happened. A few days later my parents showed up at my doorstep. Their faces were pale, eyes swollen from crying, and their usual proud posture was gone. It was the first time in years I saw them look genuinely confused and broken. Mom took a deep breath, voice trembling as she asked, "Lauren, why didn't you ever say anything? Why didn't you tell us how hard things were for you?" Dad stood beside her, silent but clearly struggling to find words. I looked at them and felt a strange mix of sadness and strength rise inside me. I had waited so long for this moment, yet it wasn't the happy reunion I had dreamed of. Instead, it felt like they were finally seeing me, but only because their golden daughter had fallen. You only see me when your perfect one messes up, I said softly but firmly. When Ashley was shining, you looked past me as if I was invisible. But now, suddenly, I'm the only one left standing. Their eyes dropped to the floor. No excuses. No quick answers. I worked hard, I continued, while you were busy celebrating her. I kept quiet, saved every penny, and built my life piece by piece without your approval or attention. Mom wiped her tears and whispered, "We were wrong. We thought she needed more. But we never realized how much you carried alone." I nodded slowly. It hurt. But this, I paused, this was never about a Bentley or a fancy car. It was about being seen. Being valued. And now maybe you finally understand. They didn't say much after that. Just stood there, quiet, as if the weight of their mistakes finally settled between us. For the first time I felt like I wasn't invisible anymore. Not to them and not to myself. Looking back, I realized my revenge wasn't about anger or fighting. It was about proving my worth quietly without violence or drama. While my family was busy celebrating Ashley's shiny Bentley, I was building something stronger. My own success, my own future. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well and letting life show the truth. If you've ever felt invisible or overlooked by your family, know this. Your value isn't measured by their approval or gifts. It's in your hard work, your strength, and the respect you give yourself. I want to hear from you. Have you faced a time when family treated you unfairly? How did you handle it? Where are you from? Please share your story in the comments. I read everyone, and we can support each other through these struggles. Remember, success isn't about the flashy things. It's about rising above and staying true to yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. Stay strong.